So in this video, we're going to cover some basic lighting principle. So the first one will be decay rate. Okay, so decay rate basically referring to how fast the energy from the light source will die off. So in principle, light is actually energy. Okay, so when you have light traveling, or its energy traveling, right, further away from the source, right, it will eventually getting like dimmer, and eventually will dies off. Okay, that's why like if you look at this picture on the right hand side, where everything is like dark. Okay, because as the light travel from the source and further away, like on this side, it actually dies off, and those cannot illuminate this area. Okay, so this is how actually light behave in a real life scenario. Now if you look at this picture on the left, right, this is lighting scenario without having a decay rate. Okay, so as a light travel from the light source, right, it will just like travel to infinity. Okay, without having like decay. Okay, so the energy will travel without without dying. Okay, so resulting like a very unnatural scenario. Okay, as compared to the one right here. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go back to Maya and I want to test it out. Right, so I'm going to use like Maya software just for the demo purposes. Right, and if you look at this scenario, okay, the lighting traveling from the left hand side and go all the way to the right hand side without having like decay. Right, so you can see like the light is all white. Okay, but if I switch this to quadratic, right, as my decay rate, and if I render again, you can see like it's more natural because the light cannot travel like that further. Okay, cannot travel that far. Okay, so around this area, the light like all the energy should dies off. Okay, so this will create a more natural lighting scenario. Okay, so that's what it means by decay rate. Now, the next one will be like distance to object. So if you observe like this picture on the left hand side, right, you have the light closer to the subject, which is the ball, which resulting the bigger shadow. Okay, so if you look at this on the right hand side, the light source is actually further away from the subject, which resulting a very small shadow. Okay, things like this I strongly encourage you to test in Maya, because Maya is also using a real life physics. Okay, so if you understand this very basic principle, then you can actually like troubleshoot your project in the future. Okay, so going back to Maya, I just having these two lights set up for you, right? So this one is quite further from the subject and this one is closer to the subject. Okay, so let's hide this one and render the one that is closer to the subject using Arnold. And this is the result. Okay, save it in the memory. Okay, hide this one, hide it, and unhide the other one. Okay, and if you compare the result, right, the one that is closer to the subject, right, resulting bigger shadow. Okay, it's further away, like smaller. Okay, same thing with this. Now, this is an example. So let's say you have a subject here, and you have the light source around that distance. This will resulting like a big shadow. Right, so this is good for a mood that require like scenario for scary mood maybe, right? Like with a big shadow and a big silhouette. So you have to put the light closer to the subject as compared to this one. So if you want to make like a very tiny shadow for the subject, then you have to put the light source like further away from the subject. Okay, so this is another like very simple stuff. So if you have the light source like this big, okay, they will make the shadow like very tiny. Okay, so if you make the light very small, that will resulting the shadow to be bigger. Okay, so let's test it out in Maya. So again, I'm gonna hide like this light, right? I'm gonna create like this huge light, and I'm going to render in Arnold. Okay, so they will give me a very tiny shadow. Okay, but if I scale this down to about 1, and I'm going to save this to the memory, and I render, okay, this will give me like a bigger shadow. Okay, so this is so the next one will be shadable. Now, a lot of art school actually refer to these exercises, so they usually ask you to shadow the ball so it looks like 3D. Okay, so there are a lot of important things that you can learn from this. Now, if you don't have this aspect, so you don't have the highlight, don't have the midtone, don't have the core shadow, and all this, right? For your shadow ball, that will resulting to a very flat render. Okay, so the shadow ball, it doesn't look like a ball. It's very 2D. It's like a circle. Okay, so the same principle also apply in lighting. So when you want to do a very nice 3D render, right, you have to maintain all these highlight, the midtone, the core shadow, right, the reflected highlight, and the cast shadow. Okay, so all these, that what makes the object looks 3D. Okay, and if you compare this picture on the left to the one on the right, alright, the left one is very flat and the right one looks 3D because all these aspects are present in the shadow ball. Okay, so one thing that I want to point out is that when you do lighting, make sure like your subject surface is not too flat or overexposed or underexposed. Okay, you have to balance everything so everything looks like 3D. Now, this is an example of what happen like if you don't have this aspect present, right? That will resulting your subject to be very flat. Okay, this is how we call like overexposed, and overexposed usually caused by the light intensity being too bright. Okay, so if you have the right aspect, right, for your subject, okay, you have the highlight, you have the midtone, you have the core shadow or whatever, right? They will create like a nice definition to your subject, and they will make this look 3D as compared to the one on the left. Okay, so this is just nice, and this is something that you have to avoid. Okay, another example, right? So I have these 3 picture, and you can obviously tell like the good one is the one in the middle. So everything is perfectly balanced in here, whereas the one on the right hand side, everything is just too bright. Okay, you can see like the color is getting washed out. So the color is actually like moving towards the white region, right? This is like too white, his hand is too white, and this dye is too white, and I can't even see the candle, right? So this is what we call overexposed. Okay, so overexposed means too bright. Now, the one on the left is underexposed, so meaning it's too dark. Okay, you can see like everything here is like too black. The dice color of this one is also like too dark, right? And the green is like way too dark. Okay, so everything here is like hard to see. Like everything is like moving towards the black region. Okay, this is something that you also need to avoid. Okay, so this one is just nice because all things here are matching with this teaching, right? It has a highlight, the midtone, and the core shadow, and that what make this render looks nice.